Today, I'm excited to welcome Kim Ashton, Head of Strategy and Innovation at the Motor Insurers Bureau and a leading light in insurance technology. Kim has enjoyed a fantastic career to date that has included technical architecture and leadership roles at global insurers Allianz and Ageas before moving to the MIB in early 2024. We will be talking through Kim's impressive journey from a graduate programmer through to a highly respected tech leader, how the technology she works with makes a real-life impact to insurance policyholders, the opportunities insurance technology can offer young people looking for a long-term career, and the technology trends that will influence the sector in the future. I'm Steve Wright, Director of Gerrard White Insurance and Technology Division, and I've had the pleasure of supporting Kim both as a candidate and a client during her journey. So I was absolutely delighted when she agreed to join me here today. Kim, fantastic to have you here. Really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you for having me.
No problem at all. I mean, I guess I'll start off by saying, remember, you're talking to a layman here. So if we can have small words and big analogies, that would be great.
Excellent.
So Kim, you started your career off as a graduate programmer before moving into the world of insurance technology. So I guess what was the pull? What took you into insurance? And I guess most importantly, what's kept you there?
So I was really lucky when I left university in the 90s. I was very lucky. I gained some skills, and the skills that I had were quite widely used in the financial services sector. So I did a year programming at a software house and very quickly realised it wasn't for me. I didn't feel, although I had a number of different clients and the clients were very diverse and I loved working with the clients, I didn't really feel like I belonged. It felt very alien to me, and it wasn't really the role for me. So after kind of my first year, I looked around for opportunities, and I wasn't specifically looking for insurance. So I found a role using the skills that I got. So I was very interested in continuing with my programming. I loved it. Very, very satisfying, very fulfilling. So I found a role at Cornhill Insurance, as they were then, down in the southeast, and that's kind of where I went. So I went for the technology, but it's the insurance that I stayed for. So I worked for that organisation for 23 years, and it wasn't just the technology and the opportunities in that space that kept me there. It was the insurance side of it as well. I fell in love with insurance. I was very, very lucky when I first started at Allianz. I worked in the personal line sector. So I worked for technology in the personal line sector. Then I went on to be a developer in the commercial line sector. Then I moved into the kind of credit management and broker side. And then I moved into the claims side. So I was really, really lucky that within my insurtech career, I got exposure to each element of the insurance process. So by the end of my journey, I kind of understood what the end-to-end insurance process was and the different drivers that there were for each one. But my time in commercial insurance especially, I really, really enjoyed. So kind of just to bring it to life a little bit. So we used to have, commercial insurance is fascinating, right? And we used to have this policy called parish councils. It's a scheme that we had. There are, I don't know how many there are now, but there's over tens of thousands of parish councils around the UK. Mm-hmm. And they all renew their insurance on the same date. And under the kind of rules of running a parish council, you have to be able to get 2 quotes in. But there were only 2 or 3 insurers in the UK that offered this scheme. So we had a huge amount of parish council policies. And just to bring them to life a little bit, this would be where the parish council would, they'd insure the war monument or the flagpole that sits in the middle of the village green or the bus stop or the benches that they have in the park or, whatever it might be. And they all renew on the same date, which then has challenges from an underwriting perspective, from and also from a technology perspective. So you have policies like that. We also, while I was there, we merged with various different kind of smaller insurers and smaller brokers. We had like our farming policies, so like Farmers Union of Wales, where you're kind of, you're insuring a bull or you're insuring the bull semen because that's worth a lot of money, kind of through IVF, etc. And you've got all the exclusions for the various different diseases, and some of it is just really, really fascinating. So I went for tech, but I stayed for insurance.
Okay, interesting. And I mean, you've worked in some, kind of highly technical and complex environments. And obviously, you as you exactly said there, you kind of went for the technology, stayed for the insurance, so you understand the technical intricacies, but also the end kind of impact for in layman's terms. When you speak to non-technical folk, how do you kind of translate what you do so that they understand it?
I think I was very lucky in that I had an aptitude of being able to talk to the business. So, and when I first started, which was a long time ago, when I first started, there was no such thing as project managers and business analysts and testers. You kind of, we were analyst programmers, we did everything. So to get on in my job, I had to be able to have a conversation with the business, which meant that I had to be able to understand what they were trying to tell, what they needed, what they were trying to tell me. So I had to understand, basic level of insurance knowledge. And I had to be able to explain my solutions to them so that we could agree that, that's the right thing to do. That's the way we're going to spend our money kind of this time around. And that's what we're going to deliver. So, and I kind of had a bit of an aptitude for it. And I think it's probably because I'm not the most technical person in the world. There are things that I do, there are things that I'm good at. And one of the things that I'm good at is taking complex technical things and breaking it down and kind of showing it to other people. I think the other thing is, as I've moved through my career and I've had different roles, different people need you to show things in a different way. So some people are very pictorial. Some people like to understand the technical detail. Some people don't like to see the thought process. They like to jump to the end and then go back and ask lots of questions. So I jokingly, when my parents ask me, "Oh, what do you do?" I say, "Oh, I create PowerPoint slide packs. That's what I do."
Yeah.
Because that is what I do. But what I'm doing is I'm taking the same bits of information, so the same core bits of information, and I'm just spreading them out and disseminating them in a slightly different way depending on who my audience is. And like I say, you have to learn those stakeholder management skills. So you have to learn how to deal with people and kind of think, that person over there really likes it when I paint a lovely picture. This person over here really likes it when I get into the technical detail. And it's something that you have to learn. And I learn it every day. Every day I have a new stakeholder, a new person that I have to deal with who doesn't like the same style as somebody else. The biggest challenge is when you walk into like a board meeting or an exco meeting, a C-suite meeting, and every single person in that meeting likes the information in a different way.
Yeah.
Because then that is a bit of a challenge. What I found over the years is that you kind of speak to them before the meeting. So if you've got a big presentation to do, then you socialize it with all of those people in the way that they like it, so that when you're going in, it's really a stage and a forum for them to ask questions. But I try to proofread everything. I try to go through and think, right, have I got anything in there that my technical brain is going, yeah, that makes sense, that makes perfect sense. Do I need to explain it?
Sure.
Sometimes I over explain it. And I get caught up in that sometimes, that I've oversimplified things. But we are the, technology, insurance and insurtech. We are the world's worst for three-letter acronyms.
Yeah.
We have loads of them. We have so many of them. It's getting that balance right between kind of really dumbing it down, but getting enough of it so that you're giving the person confidence that the technical side of it.
Yeah.
So I can dumb it down completely, but I need to give that level of confidence that they trust me, that I know what I'm talking about. It is a challenge. And yes, I can do PowerPoint slide packs till they're coming out of my ears, but it is it's very rewarding and it's very worthwhile when you've explained something to someone and they you can see that light bulb moment where they go, oh, I've never understood that before, but you've just explained it to me. I understand how that works now.
Understood. Okay, absolutely. So yeah, essentially however the method, there is the impact at the end that you want.
But I've also worked with some teams where it's quite difficult sometimes to explain the impact of a team and the work that they do in pound shillings and pence, which, you know, sometimes, especially in the insurance world, sometimes that's what they want to know. And they want to know what's the benefit that I'm going to get in kind of real money. And sometimes it is quite hard. And sometimes it is a bit of a leap of faith. And sometimes it's not, you take it as far as you can. You explain the benefits of doing what it is that you're suggesting that you do. But sometimes you're kind of also going, guys, you're going to have to follow me off the cliff here because I believe it's going to work. And these are all the reasons why I believe it's going to work. I can't guarantee that benefit, but I'm standing in front of you and I'm 80% confident that it's going to happen. I need you to take a leap of faith. So with some of it, it's very much about those relationships that you build and building that trust. And really kind of continuing to kind of shore up that trust, everything that you do, to make sure that when you really need them to follow you off the cliff, that they're going to do that.
Absolutely. And I guess that brings me nicely on to my next question there. So, you know, I guess in terms of where you've been able to have the greatest impact in what you've done and what that's then meant for the policyholder, like what would you say that is?
I think... So for me, very early on, it was about understanding the technology, because that was my job. But it was also about understanding how best it could help the business. And in order to do that, I really needed to understand the business processes, insurance, how it worked, the things that they cared about. And so it's one of the reasons why I got out of the software house kind of side of it, is because I didn't feel like, although I was connecting with customers, I didn't feel like I really understood what my customers needed. It was a job. Here's your statement of work, build this, and that's what I would build. And for me, this was very, very different. You know, my mantra from day one when I joined Cornhill, and it's been the same all the way through my career, my mantra was always, I work in an IT department for an insurance company. Ultimately, it's my job to help the company sell policies, you know, process claims, do all of the things that they need to do in order to survive. They don't make money off me as an IT person. They make money off the insurance policies that they sell. And understanding that and really understanding what drives the business and how the business processes worked was really I think that was by far the most important kind of thing that I learned that enabled me to have an impact on what I was delivering. So it's really about, if you don't understand how somebody's going to use your solution at the coalface, so if you don't understand how an underwriter or a policy administrator is going to input that information in to get a policy out of the back, then how can you build them the best solution possible to enable them to do that job?
Right.
And so for me, that's where it always started. The technical side of it was something that came afterwards. For me, it was always about understanding what the business wanted, what they were looking for, not necessarily what they were asking for, because that wasn't always the same as what they needed. And it was being able to say, okay, that's what you want. So you want a screen that does the X. Okay, that's what you want. What do you need? What are you going to do with the data? How's this going to improve your process? How are people going to use it? Right, then let's sit down and work out what the best solution is. And I think that's probably where I've had the most impact in my career. And it's a skill that I learned as a programmer that I still do today. So, you know, I did it yesterday. I had a conversation with somebody from the business to find out what it is that they wanted from something. Yeah. So, you know, it's that skill that I think that has enabled me to have the most impact. And then ultimately that helps when I worked for the insurers, that helped the customers. So deliver better customer service, deliver them a better journey, you know, all of those things that are kind of at the heart of what the insurers do. So that was always a really big thing for me, was that I wasn't just working in IT, I was working in insurtech. Yeah. So it was important that I understood insurance as well as technology. Okay, brilliant. And talking there about obviously working for a business where the solutions are to help them kind of get the policies out for the policyholders. So I guess moving from a corporate insurer that's selling insurance, going over to the MIB where you're working on behalf of the policyholders,
big culture shift there. I mean, how would you describe the difference in how the organisations work and how they see technology?
Yeah, so I think twofold really. So for me, the first thing was the size of the organisation and the nature of the organisation. So MIB is non-profit.
Sure.
So it's funded by the industry. We don't make a profit. We have a very, very important, and it's front and centre of the whole ethos is our social purpose. So we were, I don't know who knows this, we were formed kind of post-war, so 1940 something, kind of after the Second World War. And our main reason for being is to manage the claims for uninsured and hit and run, what we call untraced drivers.
Yeah.
So what that means for the policyholder is if you're hit by an uninsured driver and it's not your fault, then we will manage that claim on your behalf. And that's what that's where the funding comes from the industry, is it funds that claims pot. So it covers us for all of those things. But we have a really, really big social purpose. And, you know, we all take pride in what we do as an organisation, and especially in the claim space. It's all about delivering the best possible service that we can, getting people back on their feet as quickly as possible. You know, and it's really, really important to us. The other thing that we do is we deliver a lot of the data services for the industry as a whole, for the insurance industry. And that helps us to deliver on some, if not all, of our social purpose.
Yep.
But it also provides services for the industry, and not just the insurers, but also, you know, other consumers of that data. So we run like the motor insurance database, which is the database where if you ever get stopped by the side of the road by the police, that's the database that they will check to say, oh, do you have insurance or not? Right. Are you driving the right? Does that license plate equate to that vehicle? And, you know, are you entitled to drive this vehicle for whatever you're doing? So have you got the right class of use on your policy? So that's all about getting uninsured drivers off the road. So, you know, that's the first thing, was that made a huge difference to me. And when I walk through the door, it's really tangible when you talk to people, and all the people that I've spoken to in the organisation. It's really, really tangible. It really is. It's quite amazing, actually, to kind of think it. I reflected on it kind of after I'd done a year, and it was really noticeable that people really do have this social purpose, and that was very different for me. The other side is we're quite a small organisation, and so I've gone from Allianz, well, Cornhill as it was, then Allianz, which is huge global organisation. I think they're the biggest insurer globally.
Yeah.
It's massive. So I went from a huge organisation. Ageas was big, still global, but, you know, smaller than, considerably smaller than Allianz. And then I've come to MIB, which is smaller still.
Yeah.
And has a very small tech department. And I think so that's been quite not difficult, that's been quite challenging, because that's very much about, I might have a job title and a job description, but actually sometimes it's all hands on deck. You wear whatever hat you're asked to wear in order to get something over the line. So, you know, and so that's actually quite nice. I quite enjoy that. That's very reminiscent of where we were 25 years ago in IT, when we didn't have BAs, we didn't have project managers. Yeah. Everyone just kind of did a bit of a jack of all trades. So I've kind of enjoyed going back to that, but also it's broadened my horizons a little bit in terms of some of the things that I got involved in wouldn't necessarily be the things that I would be obvious for me to get involved in. So things like thinking about what frameworks we're going to use, and what our operating model might look like, and various different things like that I've probably been involved in, but not as heavily as I have at MIB. So I think that's probably from a kind of personal perspective, that I think, and from a technology perspective, I think also because we're not an insurer, that's been quite a culture shock for me.
Yeah.
Because completely different drivers, completely different concerns, completely different problems that need to be solved. So, I was quietly confident. I think day 1 or day 2, I met with the chief claims officer. Oh, it's claims. I know claims inside out, back to front. I know it. Oh my God, no, I don't. I don't know what claims is like in MIB. It was a very different conversation, very different drivers. We talked a lot about the things that I thought he would be interested in. from a technology perspective, so automation, kind of the use of AI, etc. No, completely different concerns, completely different kind of outlook and views as to how what they were looking for and where they wanted to go and where they saw their big problem areas were very, very different from working kind of with an insurer claims department.
Sure.
They don't have the concept of kind of straight through claims, so things like windscreen claims or freezer claims in your home, or they don't have that concept of don't touch the size, doesn't need to be looked at by a handler. Every claim we get, we have to ascertain that that there's an uninsured driver involved and that they're at fault for the accident in order to process the claim. So it's a very, very different kind of outlook. It was a bit of a culture shock, but I'm absolutely loving it.
Brilliant. Good. I'm really, really glad to hear that. And I guess we've looked at kind of past and present there, but I guess looking to the future, if we looked at, in your opinion, technologies that are either emerged or have begun to emerge in the insurance sector, like what do you think is going to have an impact in the next 5 to 10 years?
So I've kind of looked at this in a couple of different ways. So technology within kind of insurtech, everyone will say it. It's at every conference. I can't go to a conference now without people going on and on and on about AI. So artificial intelligence, whether it's the old traditional style of data analytics, automation, or whether it's the new Gen AI, virtual assistants, agentic AI is the new buzzword that everybody keeps talking about. You can't deny that it is going to help us within the insurtech space. Some places more than others. As I say, there's some areas like automation that have been around for years. We've been talking about AI for years, when we really meant machine learning. Now we are into a bit more further towards the AI end than we are towards the kind of machine learning or decision tree kind of stuff that we used to do. For me and within MIB, it's our view of AI is very much about it's an assistant. So this is not about replacing people's jobs, and this is not about, replacing whole roles. This is about changing the roles and changing what the roles, changing the level of responsibility and what the roles do. We very much look at AI as an assistant. Yep. So, Microsoft have called Copilot for a reason. It's a Copilot. It is an autopilot. It's a Copilot. It's there to assist you in doing your job more productively, more efficiently, more effectively. And that's where I think we see AI. And I think that's going to be quite a big trend, is getting away from this idea that AI is going to replace all of the jobs and none of us are going to have a job. And it's more about actually freeing us up to do the things within our job that add the most value, be it talking to a customer and really helping them through that painful journey of a claim, or whether it is putting your brain power into liability decisions and kind of, deciding how much we should settle claims for, and, all of those that really complex tasks that actually require a bit of thought and a bit of brain power kind of behind it. So I think, all of that being said, though, AI is, it's there. It's becoming increasingly difficult to ignore it. Yeah. We kind of don't have a choice. When I first started at MIB, I think one of the first questions I was asked on day one is, so what's our AI strategy? And I kind of said, I don't know, what is it? And they were like, oh, no, what are you setting as our AI strategy? And I was a bit like, oh, I don't know. So for the first kind of 4 or 5 months, I would have conversations with people that would go, we need AI. And I say, okay, so what's your use case? How do you want to use it? What process do you want to improve? What kind of AI are we talking about? And how do you want to use it? And the answer would be, oh, no, we're not quite sure how we want to use it, but we definitely need it because everybody else has got it and we definitely don't want to get behind the curtain, etc. So for the first 6 months, my kind of view was, well, I think our AI strategy is we don't want it, or we're not investing in it at the moment, but we'll keep a watching brief and see what happens. 6 months is a long time in technology. And by the time I got to our new CEO starting in July, I was radically changing my view as to what our strategy should be. And now our strategy is we will look at and we will evaluate and we will use AI, both traditional AI and also the kind of the new generative AI, we will use it where it adds value to us as an organisation. And that doesn't mean money necessarily. That doesn't mean money saving. It's not about cost saving. That means it might provide value by making somebody more productive. It might make their job more interesting. So we retain that member of staff because actually we've taken away some of the mundanity and the repeatable processes, and we've freed their time up to do more exciting things, to go out and kind of be a bit more proactive rather than reactive. So that's the strategy that we have now, and I think that will continue over the next kind of 5 years. The other one that I've kind of come at from a slightly different angle is technology that's going on in motor manufacturing that potentially could radically change the way that we sell insurance, which then has a knock-on impact to the technology side of it, because then it's about how do we support the selling of that insurance.
Sure.
And that is kind of in the self-drive space. So that's the autonomous vehicle space.
Okay.
So that is going to, potentially change the way that people own cars. Are they going to own vehicles? Do they insure for the journey? Do they insure? Does the people who own the car insure? Mm-hmm. And all of these things will be coming, will kind of bubble to the surface. And I know that the government are looking at it, and MIB are party to that. We're part of those working groups that are looking at these things. That could radically change the way that insurers have to sell motor insurance. Okay. And motor insurance could look completely different. And so from an insure-tech perspective, we then have to support that. Sure. And all of a sudden, we don't have 365-day, policies. We have a policy that might be for 365 seconds or minutes. And then how do we get that information to where it needs to go to all of the providers and everybody who provide all of those supporting services, of which we are one, that then can then support the industry and support the consumers of that data to, imagine you've taken out an hour-long policy and you're driving down the road, you get stopped by the police because that information is not on the motor insurance database. Yeah. So there's some real challenges in that space around, but it will start with legislation, and it will start with the insurers and what products they want to sell. And then InsurTech will have to be very close behind to say, okay, that's what you want to sell. How do we facilitate it? The other thing that kind of the self-drive vehicles would potentially give us, and this is very selfish and I'm very parochial view. At MIB, we've just launched our new our business strategy, and our business strategy is very ambitious. So it's end uninsured driving for good. Right now, that is exceptionally ambitious. Nobody's ever been able to do it globally. It's not, it's not a thing that's been done before. We will make every effort that we can to get as close to that as we can. So think about your self-drive vehicle. So if you don't have insurance, you can't drive that vehicle. The vehicle itself won't let you drive it. So, thumbprint to open up the vehicle, checking the motor insurance. No, you don't have insurance for this journey. What journey are you doing? You can't move. The vehicle won't start until you've told it what journey you're doing. So, there's a number of things that that technology could really, really open up for us in the uninsured driving space. It would also allow us to tackle the untraced hit and run driver. Yeah. It's always been a challenge for us because it's about the driver of the vehicle as well as the vehicle. So quite often we can identify the vehicle that's involved in an accident, but it's exceptionally difficult to prove who was driving it. Yeah. So, but think about it again with kind of the self-drive vehicles. If you have to log in with your thumbprint and you're physically in the car, then you're the one who's driving that vehicle. So, there's some stuff that we could do with the connected vehicles that we have on the road today, and a lot of them will have that. They'll save your profile, they'll know it's you. There's stuff that we can do with sensors in pedals, so the way that you operate your pedals in the car, it is very much like a fingerprint. So it's very much like a biometric thing that says, actually, I can tell that it's Steve driving and not Kim.
Okay.
So there's a lot of stuff that we can do in that kind of smart sensor type space, but so that could really help us. That's a very selfish personal view. Yeah. But the more uninsured drivers we get off the road, the less claims we handle as MIB, and that has a knock-on effect to the insurers through the levy and to the consumers through the price of motor insurance. So, there's a real kind of connection there that it's a good social purpose to have, and it's something that we can all get behind.
Yeah.
But actually, there's a real kind of monetary benefit to the end customer as well.
Absolutely. That's really interesting, and I'm definitely one to, I think, watch this space as to where that goes. So another question I wanted to ask, I guess touching on something we'd spoke about many years ago. So kind of design, delivery, and kind of, customers aside per se. You had the opportunity before you left Allianz to consult on the Allianz and LV acquisition.
Yeah.
So kind of stepping away from your role, to be that kind of SME, like how did you find that?
I loved it. Yeah. Absolutely loved it. I don't think I could do it all the time. And I definitely couldn't be one of the people who had to pull all the paperwork together. But I very much enjoyed sitting in a room for 6 weeks or however long we sat in the room, and kind of providing the SME response and providing the kind of the words that somebody else wrote up, which was quite nice. So I didn't have to produce any slides. But I loved it. It was a totally different experience for me. But it played to all of the skills that I had, that I'd garnered over the years. So it came at a time when I was a portfolio architect. So I was quite senior architect by that point. So all of those lovely skills that I'd learned as an analyst programmer, as a systems analyst, as a solution architect, and so on and so forth. It really played to those skills, and yeah, it was, I just really, really enjoyed it. It was, you had to take in information, analyse it at pace. You had to really understand. Then you had to be able to regurgitate it back. Yeah. You had to be able to see risks and issues. It was all about solutionising. You had to be able to kind of go, okay, that size and shape, I think it's going to be X amount of money and time and those kinds of things. And I think it really made the most of my experience as a kind of working in insurtech. And it was a really nice break from my day job. I definitely couldn't do it all the time. I think the other thing that I was most proud of in that when we did that piece of work was we had lots and lots of meetings. So as we went through the process and the shortlist kept getting shorter and shorter, and we were still in it. Yeah. At one point, we were allowed to go and have a conversation with LV. Okay. And so it was split into, there was an IT, there were IT workshops, there were underwriting workshops, claims operations, etc. And I was really, really lucky in that because of the skills and experience that I had, and because of the area of the business that I supported at the time, so I supported customer operations and claims. I was the only technical person who was invited into the operations workshops. Okay. And that was I really enjoyed that, because actually they did talk a lot about technical solutions and systems and interfaces and things like that. But it was because of my operational and business knowledge that the business felt confident to invite me into that meeting. Sure. And actually I got a lot of technical and IT stuff out of that meeting that I then took back to the IT guys. Okay. So it was really very enjoyable, and obviously at the end of it we were very successful. And then I was lucky enough then to be involved in the initial first 6 months of working that through, of how we were going to transition, how we were going to merge. So the stuff that we'd been talking about in the M&A piece, I then had to kind of sit down and go, right, this is what the picture's going to look like, and this is how we're going to do it, and these are the order that we're going to do stuff. Sure. So that was also very enjoyable. Was then, because we were successful, was then having being involved in that merger piece with the guys from LV. So I was very lucky because I kind of got the best of both worlds. Okay. And from the technical side of things to the people side of things, in your leadership experience, like how have you kind of approached getting the right people into the roles that you've hired for, and essentially kind of kept them there, allowed them to grow, given them what they need to move their careers forward? We've had this conversation a lot, as in, what am I looking for? Well, I don't know. I'm looking for someone like me. I'm slightly strange when I'm looking. So if I specifically think of Actually, no, I'm slightly strange anyway. I'm thinking back to my programming days. I once interviewed somebody to be an analyst programmer, and part of the interview is the technical questions. So we were asking him these technical questions, and it was clear that he hadn't programmed for a while because he was a bit rusty. And he said his answer was, yeah, look, I'm struggling with these guys. At the end of the day, if I need to know how to code that particular thing, I'll go and look in the manual. And I thought, he's not wrong.
Yeah.
I ended up offering him a job, and he stayed there. He stayed within the team for quite a few years. Actually, I moved out of the team and he was still in there. Because actually what he had was passion and an aptitude, and he could talk to us. And I thought he's going to fit in with the team brilliantly. We had quite a big team. They were quite well formed. There were some quite interesting personalities. This is technology, so there's always interesting personalities. There were some quite interesting personalities, and I thought he's going to fit in with the team. And actually, he started as a programmer. He did a stint as a business analyst and did a project management role as well. And he ended up staying with the organisation for probably longer than anybody thought he would, when I kind of said, I actually failed all the technical questions, because he had that passion and that aptitude, and that ability to be able to talk to the business. And, he was exactly the kind of person I could put in front of the business. You can't say that about all technical people. Some of them, you hide them in a cupboard for a reason. It's you can't put them in front of the business. But and that's what I look for. So in architecture, they're even more kind of technical and big brains, and thinking outside the box, thinking things a different way. Very kind of lateral thinking sometimes. So they can be quite quirky, architects, in the nicest possible way, and that's what I look for. I look for passion and an aptitude for something, and I look for the business acumen. So I don't necessarily care what industry, what sector they've come from. If they can tell me how a supply chain works from start to finish, then I know that they're interested in understanding the business that they are providing solutions for. And that's very difficult to teach. What's easy to teach is, this is the way that I want you to draw pictures. This is how, this is the template for your architecture document. This is, go and read up on how this particular piece of software works. Those are really easy things to kind of to train in and for people to pick up, and especially if they've shown that they've got a passion and an aptitude for the job. Sure. What's really difficult is you can't teach that passion, and you can't teach this kind of self-starterness of, are you interested in going and talking to the business, having a conversation with the business and really understanding what they do. And so that's kind of what I look for, really. For me, it's great if you've cut your teeth elsewhere. I remember when we first started employing project managers and BAs, and I remember the first time that we had our graduate scheme said, right, they're going to do a stint as a project manager. And I remember being filled with absolute horror that, well, how can you manage a project if you've never coded, if you don't understand the process, the software development life cycle, and you don't understand, the technicalities and so on. And I was completely wrong. I hold my hands up. Yeah, I was completely wrong. Yeah, you don't need to have coded to be a business analyst. You don't need to have coded to be a project manager. To some extent, you don't need to have coded to be an architect. You just need to be able to understand the intricacies of what sits behind it. Sure. And you can teach that. So I went from can't be a project manager if you haven't coded, to when architects were saying you can't be an architect if you haven't coded, to me saying, actually, I could take somebody who's been a claims handler and make them into an architect. And that's the key. That was always the key thing for me. It was always about, you have to see the world in a certain way. Yeah. And that is very difficult to train.
So the aptitude, essentially. Yeah.
Definitely passion and aptitude are the two things for me that I look for.
Okay. And I guess on the subject of people, if you were to give one piece of advice to, I guess, your younger self or any techies looking to start their career, let's say taking insurance as an option, what advice would you give them?
It really depends on what you want to do. So some roles, there are so many roles now in IT. I think went to my son's school quite a few years ago now and did a kind of careers talk on roles in IT. And I put this slide up and it was just covered in lots and lots of different job titles. And there are so many roles in IT now. Some of them are very business facing, and some of them aren't. Some of them are quite far removed, and you could probably go your entire career without talking to anybody from the business and without needing to talk to anybody from the business, because actually you have a very specific role. And so, you know, talking about data analytics, so spotting patterns in data and things like that. Sometimes you do need to understand the data that's sitting behind it. Other times, actually, that hinders you more than it helps you. So it really depends on what you want to do. But, you know, insurance is interesting. It is a really interesting career. There are so many things that technology supports within the insurance industry now. You know, so it's data driven. It's a data driven industry. It's a great place to go for InfoSec. It's very regulated. So very heavily regulated. So in the kind of InfoSec, the DPO, the data compliance, all of those areas, you know, there's a real plethora. And also no insurance company could operate if they didn't have technology in some way, shape or form. And all data that they hold is sensitive data.
Sure.
So, you know, it's a great place for kind of InfoSec cybersecurity. The thing for me is always to remember, and this very much depends on who you go and work for.
Yeah.
But in a standard insurance company, the thing for me that you always need to remember is that you work for insurance. So you are an IT department for an insurance company. So if that idea floats your boat, then that's exactly the place where I would go. If I had to join any industry, you know, or any sector, it would be financial services, and then within that it would be insurance. So banking is quite interesting, but insurance is really quite interesting. And I think, you know, but there are other areas of IT that are further removed. And then there's also, you know, a lot of insurance company these days outsource a lot of their IT and technology. So again, it's a bit like working for a software house, but actually that gives you kind of the best of both worlds. If you're more technically and techie minded, then that's an obvious outlet for you. But yeah, if you want a role where, you know, you can get up close and personal with the business and really deliver some value into the organisation, then InsurTech, I think, is the thing. So I've got a question for you. So how do you go about selling InsurTech roles to people who haven't worked in that space before?
That's a great question. My answer to that would be insurance is it's a marquee industry. Although people don't typically see past motor, home and pet, like you can insure anything, and the problems that the sector solves, and the protection it gives people and businesses and governments and countries all over the world, you know, is immense. It goes further than most people can fathom when they just look at it from the outside. It's also a sector where technology has changed dramatically over the last 10, 20 years, and it's still continuing to. There's so much focus on replacing legacy software. There's new InsurTechs, no-code, low-code platforms, running policies, managing data all over the place. So it's pioneering. It's interesting, it's exciting, it's cutting edge, and on top of that, it is solving, like, you know, anything from small to the biggest kind of problems that you can imagine. So, you know, I could talk about it all day, and I think that if you can really harness someone's interest, with the variety and the broadness of what tech can solve in the sector.
Yeah. Sold it to me, thank you.
Yeah, brilliant. No problem. Do you want a job? So look, just wanted to wrap it up there. I think, if I was to squeeze any more insight out of you, you'd be charging me a premium at this point. So, but look, you know, Kim, it's been fantastic having you on today. I've really appreciated your time. And yeah, thanks ever so much.
Thank you.
No problem.